So this is a toolkit that we did in class on Friday right before break, and we are looking at combining like terms with addition, subtraction, and multiplication in the problems. You can see here that I've got two problems that just include integers, which are whole numbers and their opposites, and then I have rational numbers down here, which include our fractions. We're right now just going to focus on these top two here and go through them. So combining like terms, meaning we are going to combine the parts that can be combined. They have the same term, like this has 4x, this is 6x, and those can be combined. So we're going to start that by circling the 4x, and the number that can be multiplied or added together with the 4x is the 6x. I'm going to circle both of those, and then I'm going to color them orange just for identification purposes. Okay. And then I'm going to square my numbers that don't have x, and I'm going to make those green. And so now we can see that we are combining the things that have the x's and then combining just the numbers themselves. I've got 4 x's and I have 6 x's, so I've got 10x. I have 3 and I'm going to subtract 4, and that's why I included that sign there, included this sign. And each one of these you see that the operation that is right in front of it is included. 3, and I'm going to take away 4, and that's going to be minus 1. And so what you can see in here is I now only have the term represented one time. Okay, instead of having a 4x and a 6x, it's like putting it in a bucket. I now have 10x's in the bucket. Okay, we're now going to check this equation and verify that they are equivalent by substituting in a value for x. I can't calculate this on a calculator because x is a variable, but if I do give that variable an actual value, then I can calculate it. So I'm just going to pick a number, and I like to pick easy numbers to work with. So I'm going to pick x as 2, and I'm going to make that blue. And so now I'm going to substitute that in, and I'm just going to rewrite this equation down here. I've got 4x plus 3 plus 6x minus 4. That's what we were working with there, and I just rewrote it. And what I'm about to do here is substitute 2 in every time I get to an x. And so I have 4 times 2 plus 3 plus 6 times 2 minus 4. And you can see that when I got to the x, those became 2's. So when I solve this, I've got 4 times 2, that's 8, plus 3 is 11, plus 6 times 2 is 12, so I'm at 11 plus 12 is 23, minus 4 equals 19 as our answer. Take yellow here, and just so that we can see that that value there, when I put in 2, equals 19. We're doing that because now we're going to check this equation right here, and if I substitute that same number 2 in for x, then I should end up with 19 if it's equivalent. I'm going to rewrite this 10x minus 4, and we're about to substitute the 2 in right there where that x is, so it becomes 10 times 2 minus 1. 10 times 2 is 20, minus 1 is 19. So that equals 19. And so therefore they are equivalent because this and this are the same. So you can say they are equivalent. What's making them the equivalent is they both equaled 19. Okay. Moving on to our second one over here, we're getting a little more complicated, and what we have on here is now multiplication. So when you're combining terms, that combining is like adding, right? You're combining them together. If I've got 4 things over here and 6 things over here, I combine them together, I have 10. Order of operations says we have to multiply before we combine or before we add. So I need to multiply. I need to do this operation. There's a multiplication operation right there. And I need to do this operation right here. Okay. So I've got 3 times 4, and so that is 12D. And I've got negative 6 times 2, and that is minus 12C. Okay, so I just brought that down. And now I'm going to bring down my other parts. I still have the 6C. There's my addition. So this is happening here, plus 3 times 4D ended up being 12D. Subtract 6 times 2C is subtract 12C. And now I still have plus 4C. Combining our like terms, I'm going to combine 6C. I'm going to combine minus 12C. And see, I brought that sign with us. That's important. And I'm going to combine plus 4C. Those are all the C's. And I'm going to color them all orange. So as I've told you guys, you can use the circles and squares. You can use the colors. I'm actually doing 2 different methods here for identifying like terms. I'm using colors, and I'm also using shapes. I'm going to square off my plus 12D because that's a different term. And as I combine this, I've got 6C plus 4C is 10, minus 12C is negative 2C, and I still have plus 12D. There's negative 2C, and here's plus 12D. Okay, so what we're saying is this and this are equivalent. Now we're going to check that, and so we need to give value. All right, so I had to pause my video for a minute, so I'm kind of bringing my brain back where I was, and I don't remember the last thing that I had said. But let's see, where I left off was this expression is equivalent to this one, and that we need to find a value for C and D so that we can check that equivalence. So I'm going to write here that C is going to equal 1, and D is going to equal 2, because remember, we're just putting in any numbers, and those are some pretty reasonable, easy numbers to put in. I'm going to just color them blue as I can guide you through like I did on the other ones. I'm going to bring this equation down, and I'm going to just rewrite it so that I can kind of start to work with it again. Okay, so I'm going to be substituting in 1 for C every time I see it. There's a C. There's a C, and there's a C. And then I'm going to be substituting in 2 for D every time I see it, and there's 1D right there. So I've got 6 times 1, right, plus 3 times 4 times 2 minus 6 times 2 times 1 plus 4 times 1. Nice and long. Okay, and so what we have here is the 1 that was replaced there. There's a 1. That D became 2, and the C became 1. And so when I go ahead and calculate that, you can just go straight onto your calculator and make sure that you have it right, or you could do it on paper, and that would be fine as well. I've got 6 times 1 is 6. I'm just going to kind of gather my thoughts here as I work through this. 6 times 1 is 6, and then I've got 4 times 2 is 8, times 3 is 24. So I'm currently at 30 here. Then I've got negative 6 times 2 is 12, and so I'm going to take away 12, so I'm at 18, plus 4 times 1 is 4. That gives me 22. So I was just working through that, doing the actual math right there, and I ended up with 22. Circle it. Continue to use those same colors. And that's 22 there. Okay. Bringing this one down, I'm going to say that this is negative 2C plus 12D, and just rewrote the exact same thing, and I'm going to be substituting in my values there where C and D are. And so I've got negative 2. When I get to C, that's 1, plus 12. When I get to D, that's 2. I'm sorry, that's 2. Should be 2 right there. And so when I do that calculations, what I end up with here is 12 times 2 is 24, And negative 2 times 1 is negative 2, so 24 minus 2 is 22. And color that yellow as well. And those are both the same number, so therefore they are equivalent. And I will work through the other two on another video separate from this one. Okay? There you go, as you are looking through it and trying to make sense of that.